Welcome to another episode of Win as One. I am Aviance.
I am Aramis.
And I am Pastor D. I did it. I did it.
You got to roll with it.
You gotta go with it. It's all right. It'll be good.
That's fine. So today, our last episode, we talked about how Win as One is all of our brands under one umbrella. Today, we're going to focus on Gospel Love, which you see behind me, our great Gospel Love that we've been working on. So what do we want to get into today about our Gospel Love brand?
Well, I mean, we have a very unique thing happening with our Coffee in the Morning Club and our Marriage Mastery Challenge coming up probably around the first of the year. And but now we want to establish the community of marriage masters, and we're going to entitle that our Coffee in the Morning Club, because there's a very unique story behind Coffee in the Morning, and we'll get into that at some point. But you know, our Gospel Love brand is the brand that focuses on love relationships and coaching, creating courses, giving people an opportunity to be a part of a community where they can surround themselves with those who are seeking the same thing that they're seeking. One of the things that we found with not just people in business, people in sports, people in whatever you do in life, when you surround yourself with people who are of the same mindset, when you surround yourself with people who want to accomplish the same things and achieve the same things that you want to achieve, those people are the ones that become like uber successful. They become like extremely successful at what they do. You know, the Bible says in the multitude of counsel, there's safety. The word safety there is from the word salvation. We know salvation is a fivefold word, right? It speaks to wealth creation, health maintenance, deliverance, protection, and wholeness. So when you surround yourself with other people who are more wise than you are, or as wise as you, then you can grow together. You can glean from them. You can learn from them. You can understand from them. You can become masterful with them. And, you know, the gospel was designed to be, you know, a community of believers of faith anyway. So first thing we want to do is create a community where people can come, where couples can come, where engaged couples can come, specifically couples of color, right? Where they can have a place where they can go and people be able to relate to their culture and their community and their backgrounds and where they come from, right? It's one thing to come from a two-parent home where you've seen mom and dad love each other. It's a whole nother thing when you come from a single parent family. You've seen, you know, daddy come in with, you know, girlfriends and mama come in with boyfriends and they fuss and they fight. And you see too, like how do I love? How do I be married? Right. So the uniqueness of the community of color that we all come out of, like we all were a part of what everything that I just mentioned in some form or some fashion. And to be able now to come full circle and be able to coach and empower and equip, you know, couples to master marriage, man, it's a beautiful thing. And so our Gospel Love is about mastering marriage. It's about mastering the skills of love, and it's about mastering. It's really about mastery stacking, and that's something we'll get into. But once you get to the point where you've mastered certain, you know, you can stack your mastery skills, then the proverbial, we talked about it last week, marriage is hard, goes right out the window, because it's really not hard.
So I actually want to jump to you, bro. Mm-hmm. So when you hear about mastering marriage, does that sound something that's, you know, like achievable? Is that something that, you know, sits well with you? I mean, think about to master marriage?
The first time I think I heard that, I did think, because we all grow up learning that marriage is hard or marriage is such a big sacrifice, or you have no idea what it takes to have a good marriage, or you know, you got to be a special type of person to you know, to be married. You know what I mean? Like all these things that suggest that there's this mystery, this ominous, you know, unknown, I guess just sweet spot that seems almost attainable, unobtainable. And so even going into marriage, you know, the idea that I had was, I know how to be polite. I know how to hold the door. I know how to, you know, be courteous. I know how to, you know, think of her first, you know, or try my best to put her first. You know, all the I guess surface level stuff that you know that you can teach to a young man about how to treat a lady. You know what I'm saying? And I took all of that into marriage thinking that, you know, that was enough. You know what I'm saying? And when you begin to learn about marriage mastery and you understand that, you know, the initial core thing that you need is love, right? Well, even at the onset of that, people throw around the word love like it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not it's a being. Like, it's a person. You know what I'm saying? It's so much deeper than that. So I think, you know, to answer your question, I you know, marriage mastery, I didn't think it was as deep as it really, you know, as we learned that it was.
Okay. So then when you say, you know, you had those surface level things, right? So I know today we're going to talk about cleaving. So when you hear to cleave unto your wife in the mindset that you are now, what is it that you truly know about what that cleaving is supposed to look like?
Well, I couldn't be a mama's boy no more.
Uh-oh. Oh, that's a good one right there.
Oh.
That's a good one.
Oh.
I couldn't be a mama's boy no more.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick up the mic from there?
So many men go into marriage looking for a mama instead of for a woman.
That's
a wife.
A fact.
Yeah. They want mama. Right? So yeah, that's a powerful one right there. When you look at it like that, you can't be a mama's boy. I want to go back and say something, add something to what he said earlier. When he said, you know, loving, I said this last week and it sounds pretty simple, but marriage was designed for lovers. But most folks don't understand loving. You came up with a tagline for what we want to use for our gospel love brand is that loving can be learned. If loving can be learned, loving is a skill. And if loving can be learned, and if loving is a skill, then it can be learned. If loving can be learned, it can be mastered. Right? Marriage was designed for lovers. And to the degree you grow in love or you master the skills of loving will be to the degree you're successful in marriage. Right? We're not going to get into the skills of loving today. But just one of those skills. Let me just give one of those skills.
Caitlin, I'm gonna need you
I need to add like 5 minutes on the clock.
Okay, I won't get into it. But the skills to loving it, and most men and women when they go into marriage, they have, as you said, you have those general skills. You have the surface skills. You have those things that I don't even know if I would classify them as skills, so to speak, more than I would, you know, fruit of, because you have the skills of loving, you have the fruit of loving. Right. And so, but those skills are vital. They're vital to the success of a marriage. And once we develop those skills of loving, and once we communicate those skills to the couples that we coach and we work with, then marriage becomes drastically different. So, but you can't as a husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church, which is the first husbandry skill that we have to have as husbands, without understanding and knowing what cleaving is all about. And so, to have a mindset to stop being a mama's boy and stop looking for a mama, but look for a wife is a prerequisite if you're going to be a husband and be the husband that you're supposed to be. Right? Everything we talk about when it comes to marriage, when it comes to business, when it comes to faith, it starts and it ends with the word of God. Everything begins with a spirituality. Everything begins with, as you said, with the person of love. Most people don't understand that love is not a feeling. Love is a person, first and foremost. It's a spirit that stirs how I feel, that affects how I feel, but it's a person, it's a spirit that has power, that has life. It is the most beautiful thing. It is the most beautiful thing. To be in love is the most beautiful thing.
It's also the most powerful thing.
It's the most powerful thing. It's the most beautiful thing. There's so much power. There's so much power in love and loving. It's the most beautiful thing, right? To be in love is life, right? To be in love is life. Life was designed to be lived in love. When you're not in love, you're not truly experiencing the apex of life. That's the design of it. Loving is the answer to so many of the problems and plagues we face today, but we don't know it. Most folks don't live in love. They don't live in love.
If you're not living in love, you're living in death.
You're living in death. If you ain't living in love, you're living in death.
Okay, so someone told me this idea, right? They felt as if being in love is a sickness. because you know how they say that you do a lot of stupid things when you're in love. So their thought is you should fall in like with someone, but to fall in love with someone is actually like an illness because it causes you to do things that you wouldn't normally do.
That person ain't know what they was talking about.
Something wrong. I don't even.
This is the bottom line.
They just don't know better. No, they don't know better. Right. They don't know better. The Bible does have this scripture. It says, "I am sick of love." So the idea of life is to be lovesick. It's to be sick of love. My girl Beyonce, we talked about it before.
I know, Papa.
She got it right. To be drunk in love. Right? The whole idea of it is to be drunk in love. That's the whole idea of it. Now, I'm referring to another scripture that talks about being ravished with love. Mm-hmm. But the Shulamite woman says, "I am sick of love." I'm like, I can't live without loving. I'm sick of love. That's what she was saying. This love thing has got me in a space, right? So love is so foreign. The nature of love is so foreign to society now that you will have people make statements like that, right? That like love is wise. Love is intuitive. Love is comforting. Love is affectionate.
Love is patient. Love is patient.
I mean, love has so many. Love has every attribute of life connected to it. I heard somebody say as it related to their relationship to the degree that love was not enough. Well, I get what they're saying, but they still wrong. It's still wrong.
I guess
it's still wrong. I know what you say. I know you can see it. I know you're going with it. And I know why you see it the way you see it. But the way you seeing it is from the perspective. It's not from your perspective. You seeing it from the other perspective.
Right.
Right. When there's two people involved in a relationship, both of them got to be loving. Mm-hmm. One decides not to love. That don't mean your love wasn't enough.
Right.
Your love was enough. They just decided to quit, right? So it's so foreign to us, though, right? But loving has such an impact on life, and one of the reasons why we were talking the other day, Adam fell from love. That's where he fell from. He fell from love.
So really quick before we get too far off, how do you get away from that mindset? Because I would consider that to be a very prominent mindset, that my love is supposed to activate their love toward me.
Right.
Right. And so the thought process is, if they're not loving me, it's something I'm doing wrong.
Amen.
If they're wanting to leave, something I did wrong. Right. I'm not loving enough, or I'm not giving enough, or I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you get away from that mindset?
Well, first there has to be an awareness, right? So when we look at the idea of learning, right? Life was designed to be learned. The idea of learning is mastery. The objective of learning, biblically speaking, is mastery. Paul said we all strive for the mastery, right? It's mastery. Once you master a thing, that means you're able to execute that thing under the extreme pressures of life. You're able to live that thing intuitively, spontaneously, without any conscious effort. It becomes effortless to you, right? So there has to be an awareness first and foremost. Then there has to be a level of understanding. The idea of understanding, it means to bring together the sum total of all the parts of a thing. It's like if I give you all the parts of an engine, right? But I don't give them to you in no particular order. If you understand how engines work, then you're able to tie all those things together, right? That's understanding. We have marriage, we have life, and all those things. We have another level of understanding that we're able to pull all those things together when it comes to marriage, when it comes to loving, when it comes to husbandry skills. We can pull all those things together. Then you have wisdom. Wisdom is the highest level of knowing, which is equivalent to mastery. I now have the ability to appropriate what to do, when to do, and how to do it as it relates to my understanding of a particular thing. So when you got someone who doesn't have the mindset that you just described, then they have to go through a process of awareness, understanding, and then wisdom. Okay. Once they go through that process, now they can do what they're assigned to do in the very beginning, and that's cleave. The first skill or assignment that a man has with loving his spouse is to cleave, is the idea of cleaving. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions of marriage is that the woman is supposed to cleave to the man. The woman is supposed to submit to the man, not cleave to the man. There's a difference. And we see, if you go back to the beginning, Jesus said it like this. He said, when he was asked, actually, Jesus was asked by some of the religious folk when it came to marriage. He said, Moses gave us the ability to write a divorce folk whenever we felt like it. He says, no, for the hardness of your heart, he gave that to you. But he said, in the beginning, it wasn't so. So now we go back to the beginning in Genesis 2nd chapter, verse 23, it says, and Adam said unto, he says, this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Verse 24 says, therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave unto his wife. It's clear right there in the word of God that the man's responsibility is to cleave to the wife. There was a reason for that. Most of us don't understand that reason. Once we understand that foundational reason, then it'll give us more insight into what my responsibility and role is as a husband and why I need to be the way I'm supposed to be toward my wife. The idea of cleaving speaks to cling to stick, to stay close to keep close, to look carefully, to pursue, to overtake, to impinge. I'm talking about those are some of the most intimate words that you can have. Well, the idea of the idea of cleaving begins with whenever there was a marriage in their day, there were arranged marriages in most cases, right? And how it's supposed to be, and it still should be this way today. One of the hardest things it should be for a daughter to do is leave the security, the comfort, the provision, the protection. Really, I can say it like this: the salvation of her father. That should be the hardest thing for a daughter to do. She has to be torn away. Literally, she has to be pushed to go and be married. She has to be torn. It's one of the saddest moments in the history of a daughter's life, is to be taken out of her comfort zone and go. Remember now, she didn't know the folks she was going to. Like, she didn't know the people. She had never met them before in her life.
Right.
Her first encounter with her husband would be the whole marriage ceremony. Right. And everything happened one shot. Everybody waited around. That's till they went and consummated the marriage with the sexual union. And she had to prove that she was a virgin by bringing out the cloth with blood on it. Everybody waited around. That was her first experience with them people that she was going to be with the rest of her life with. So you're asking someone to leave the comfort of their father, their brothers, their siblings, their mother, their grandparents, to leave the comfort of provision, to leave the comfort of all these things and go and now live with a complete strange family, people that you don't know. That's hard. That's gut-wrenching. The fear, imagine the fear and the doubt and the uncertainty that would arise. Now, she trusts her father, and she would trust that her father said he's not going to put you in a situation where you're not going to be taken care of. But still the same, you still as a daughter. And we're not talking about 30, 40, 50-year-old women here. We're talking about 14, 15, 16-year-old girls. That's how young they was when they got married back in this time, right? Even today, 25, 35, older, however, I think the average age people get married now, I think between 28 and 35. Still, there's still the level of uncertainty that arises. But the idea of cleaving. So now the daughter leaves and she has to be torn apart. She has a lot of needs now. That's why the Bible says the husband, your responsibility is the first. You're supposed to cleave. In that cleaving process is a healing process. In that cleaving process is the comforting process. In that cleaving process is the affirmation process. In that cleaving process are manifested the skills of loving, to secure her, to comfort her, to get her to let her know that, listen, you're in a safe space. You don't have to worry about anything. It was so important that they would give the husband and the wife a whole year away from work, a year away from going to war. They couldn't do nothing. But your responsibility, son, is to focus on that woman. Connect with her, come in contact with her, impinge her, become one with her. See, the idea of oneness begins with the husband and him cleaving to his spouse. But he first got to have a mind to leave. That's why he says for a whole year, leave us alone. You go, y'all focus on y'all.
Yeah, I'll take a year-long honeymoon.
Take a year-long honeymoon for a whole year. We don't figure the time frame out. We break all this down in our Gospel Love Marriage Mastery Challenge. We figured out the time frame. If you had a whole year, how long it's going to take you to equal that time spent together, right? But the whole focus of cleaving has nothing, I shouldn't say has nothing. The whole focus of cleaving is all on the man. We mix that up with submission. See, I can't ask her to submit to me before I've cleaved to her. If I don't cleave to her, I have no right to ask her to submit to me. The idea of cleaving is the husband bringing a sense of healing, a sense of comfort, a sense of loving, a sense of caring to a spouse. You don't have to listen. You don't have to worry about anything. I got you. I got you. Whatever you need. I'm here to be sure that this transition from you leaving your father's house to coming under my house, under my roof, is as smooth and as easy as possible. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother. In other words, take your attention off of them and now put them solely on this woman.
So I have a question, but did he answer yours by that?
Mhm.
Okay. So my question is, in today's society, however, there's a lot of men who don't live in the household with the daughter. So a lot of women now, they don't feel torn. They feel saved by a man that wants to marry them. So now that
Wait,
women,
the tearing comes from the father. But I get it. Now you're saying, so let's address that point, right? What you're saying is they don't feel torn, they feel saved. Right. But in a sense, there's still a womb there. The womb is not having a fatherly figure around in the first place.
Absolutely.
So there's still a need for her to feel, because now the other factor that comes into that is she's used to caring for herself. She's used to looking out for herself. So in a sense, she in her mind, she don't necessarily need him to do it. And when you go into a marriage in a situation like that, it becomes real tough now. Because as a man, my manliness, my masculinity is centered in me cleaving to you in the sense of everything that cleaving represents: protecting, serving, comforting, strengthening, nourishing, building your confidence in your faith. Like if you don't allow me to be that to you and do that for you, then that leaves me lacking and inefficient in some senses. I have to have, as a man, there's a necessity in me to be that. So there's a whole nother challenge we got to overcome, right? She has to be developed, and her skills have to be developed, and allowing someone to love her.
Okay, so it seems like we could actually have two issues. We could have an issue where the woman now has to allow the man to be the man, but to your point, the man has to know that I'm looking for a wife in this woman and not a mama.
Right.
Because they could both be in a sense of this marriage is supposed to save these voids that I have. And I think that's something that we have to combat too, because that's a lot of people are coming in with that idea.
So there's a fine line, but the fine line is the mother's responsibility is to take a boy and turn him is to take an infant and turn him into a boy, grow him into boyhood, so to speak, right? Which again, our mentality, boyhood is all off. Boyhood in Bible times is not a, what we think it is. Like boyhood in our day represents irresponsibility, uncontrollable, do whatever you want to do. Boyhood in their day was totally the exact opposite. It means you now come into a degree of responsibility. Mm-hmm. You now have to really focus and follow the leading of your father, right? So all that is different. But the point is, the mother's role was a nourisher. From let's say, a childhood to boyhood, let's use that word, from childhood to boyhood, right? The father took him from boyhood to manhood, right? The wife's role is to take him from manhood to and help him to develop his kingliness. Her focus is the king. See, there's a king in him that I want to pull out. There's a king in him that I want to nourish. There's a king in him that I want to champion. That's the role of a wife. Right? When you study Proverbs 31, you look at how she affected her husband. He couldn't go nowhere. Everywhere he went, he was recognized as a king. So to know the difference, right? Most men are still looking for their mother in their wife. Right. And that's not the wife's responsibility. It's to mother you. It's to wife you. It's to pull the king out of you. It's to encourage you. It's to push you. That's the idea of a wife.
It's almost like we have to be taught how to understand the impact that a father is supposed to have without actually having a father before we get married.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because without that,
right,
you won't know how to see the king in me and speak to that. Without that, I won't know how to cleave to you and how to be a man for you. You know what I'm saying? Like
you won't know.
Daddy gone, you ain't gonna know.
Right. And that's one of the biggest problems we have, and that's one of the reasons why we focus on couples of color. Because we have people, because love is still love. Like we all want to be loved, and we all have a need to love, right? So without that fatherly figure to show us that, it becomes difficult to function in a marriage like we were designed to function in the marriage. Yeah. And that's why we have our Gospel Love community. That's why we have our Gospel Love Marriage Mastery Challenge. It's to help equip those who want to love, who desire to love. Because loving is a major part of life. Life, as we said earlier, was designed to express loving and to be about loving in so many ways. Life is love's playground. I was in the chiropractor yesterday, and some scenarios came up, and the guy asked me what I was going to do for the weekend. I said, I'm going to spend time with my grandchildren. He said, well, you look too young to have grandchildren, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, he's like, what do you do to stay so young? I said, I'm in love. What I've been thinking about, I'm in love. I'm in love with my Lord. I love my family, and I love my life. I love what I do. Right? Well, to love is life. Right? So if I'm living in love at all times, most people don't live there. Most people live in death. They live in enmity with God. They live in variance with their family, and they hate they hate what they do. They live in death, and death has an effect on you. Right? We talked about it earlier. One of the first things that happened with Adam and Eve when they fell from love, they started aging. They started dying. They started aging. Aging is a part of death. So when you have people
I'm sorry. You talking about when Adam saw Eve and said, "Oh, you look old." It just popped in my mind. I'm sorry, my bad.
Yeah, that's cool. That's funny. He saw. Oh, you got some age on you. You old now. You look old. Right. That's what happened when they fell. That's how he knew something was wrong. She started aging. She started dying. Right. Man, you done got old over there. What you doing? You done done something. You done ate from the wrong thing. You done did something you're supposed to do. No, that's what it is. She started aging. Right. But when you have young adults growing up and they coming out of a culture of divorce and a culture of death, they want to bring that over, and that's why our divorce rate is what it is today. Well, we're going to combat that. We're going to empower. We're going to equip. We're going to train lovers the skills of loving, the skills of husbandry, the skills of wifery. We're going to train them in how to do that, and then how to master marriage. Marriage mastery is the product of mastery stacking. When a husband, as you just said, when he masters the skills of loving, because loving is a skill. If it's a skill, it can be learned. If it can be learned, it can be mastered. Mm-hmm. Husbandry is a skill. If it's a skill, it can be learned. If it can be learned, it can be mastered. Mm-hmm. And you stack that on mastering the mechanics of marriage. So marriage mastery is the product of you mastering the skills of loving and the skills of husbandry. And it's not hard. It's not hard at all. We just got to have awareness, understanding, and wisdom. And we're going to be able to impart that through couples that take a part in my Coffee in the Morning community and who take advantage of our Marriage Mastery Challenge offer. And that's what Gospel Love is going to be to our society and to our community, is bringing lovers together and developing the skills. Everything revolves around skill development in life. Everything, the actual word for wisdom means to live life with skill at a high level. And until you have mastered the skills of loving, you master the skills of husbandry, you master the skills of wifery, you're going to struggle with being married.
Look, he did a good job today.
So close.
That's actually how he ended the thought too. He does that too. Yeah. Any last thought before we close out, bro, about this Marriage Mastery Challenge or about our Coffee in the Morning Club?
I'm just so excited to see the impact of it. I mean, even what we talked about today, with people understanding the importance of key things that they probably didn't even take time to think about, and how it affects them now. It's a lot of this is so subterranean. It's just like you really got to dig for this stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And with us having the ability to kind of dig that up for them and present it in a way where they can, be edified and grow and become what they want to become for their own marriage sake. I can't wait.
Well, I can't wait either, because I say it all the time, but looking at you two and looking at those little things that I've never seen Caitlin do, and I'm like, oh, that's different. It's cute, but that's different.
You gonna ask me if I got any last thoughts? I do have a last thought. I do have a last thought.
You done messed up, right?
I do have a last thought.
You done messed
Are you
up.
gonna ask me if I have any last thoughts, please? Please ask me if you have any last thoughts. Because I do have a last thought. Can I just go ahead and share that thought with you?
I feel like it's like Dennis the Menace sort of. It's like, it's like, why?
Yeah, I just got one last thought.
Okay.
Okay, so cleaving, right? I love this idea of cleaving.
Mm-hmm.
It's the husband's responsibility. It says to look too carefully. It's to look too carefully.
Too carefully is it too much?
No. It means to look to with care or very carefully.
Gotcha.
It's like I'm examining her needs. I'm examining her wants. I'm examining her desire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to examine everything that she needs, she wants, she desires, and I'm supposed to supply that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea of cleaving. Husbands, the responsibility is to carefully examine the needs of your spouse, of your wife, and then put her in a position where you don't have to worry about those things. I'm going to care for those things for you. That's loving. That's loving. The cleaving in Genesis and husbands loving your wife in Ephesians are one and the same. We can match those things together. Husbands love your wife as Christ loved the church. What did he do? He looked carefully to the needs of the church, and he supplied them through salvation. Yeah. Right? Okay, and I'm gonna stop right there. I'm doing good today. I tap, but you said I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna do good.
Look at you.
I'm gonna do good.
Once we get the lavaliers, we ain't gotta worry about it.
Yeah, I ain't gotta worry about the tapping.
Listen, but this is actually good practice though, everyone, because we have some things coming up, and he needs to learn how to hone it in to not give everything
There's just
out
so
under
much.
a
There's so
time
much to
limit.
give away though. There's so much to give. There's so much content. Like it's come to like I've been married over 26 years, going 27 years, and in a love relationship, and the love of God is just consuming. It's like we said last week. I love loving. Marriage was designed for love. Like everybody's supposed to love loving. Just so we're clear. Just so we're clear, everybody is supposed to love loving. That's life. We'll get into that another time.
Yep, because I'm looking dead at you.
I'm gonna stop.
I'm staring him down, bro. Like, I dare
stop.
you to keep going. I dare you to keep going.
I'm done.
This podcast ain't gonna be for free. You keep going.
I'm done.
Oh,
That.
man.
Yeah, you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Well, until next time, make sure you like, comment, share. Let us know your thoughts. Be safe, be blessed, and keep loving on purpose.
Amen.